As we turn our attention to live pictures coming out of London, where the Queen is about to receive visiting Chinese President Xi Jinping. We can see over there that Queen Elizabeth II has been waiting, along with her husband, Prince Philip, of course. Their Chinese president arriving. Chinese President Xi Jinping greeted by the Queen and her husband, Prince Philip. That's President Xi Jinping's wife, Madam Peng Liyuan. As we said earlier, this is the first day visit to the UK for Chinese President Xi Jinping, and he's the first Chinese president to visit the UK in 10 years. President Xi has got a packed schedule for today. He has got a lot planned to do with Queen Elizabeth II. This is a formal welcome ceremony on Horse Guards Parade. Later, the President Xi Jinping, and the Queen will travel back to Buckingham Palace in a carriage procession. We do know that when carriages arrive back at the palace, a guard of honor will salute the president, and a military band will play the UK and China national anthems. All of this unfolding later. Gun salute being fired in honor of visiting Chinese President Xi Jinping. President Xi Jinping is being received by the Queen at the Royal Pavilion on Horse Guards Parade. Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall have greeted the Chinese president and his wife at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel. Xi Jinping and the Queen will inspect the guard of honor before traveling to the Buckingham Palace in a state carriage procession. The flags of the UK and China line the route.
Guard of honor, slow arms. Guard of honor, shoulder arms.
Chinese President Xi Jinping and the Queen are inspecting the British Guard of Honor. These are live pictures coming out of London as part of Chinese President Xi Jinping's welcome ceremony hosted by the Queen. Grenadier Guards, joined by the Queen's color and army musicians, are presenting a guard of honor to Mr. Xi and his wife, Peng Liyuan. The flagman will break the national flag of China on the roof of the horse guards. As Xi Jinping alights from his car and steps onto the first step of the Royal Pavilion, royal salutes will be fired across London with a 41-gun salute from Green Park by the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery and a 62-gun salute at Her Majesty's Tower of London by the Honourable Artillery Company. Xi Jinping's trip is the first visit to Britain by a Chinese president in a decade. China-Britain cooperation has created numerous records. Britain was the first Western country to join the China-proposed Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and to support the inclusion of the RMB in the IMF's SDR currency basket. Britain is China's top destination for investment in Europe. Last year, Chinese enterprises launched 112 projects in Britain.
Guard of honor! Slow! On!
If you're just joining us, these are live pictures coming out of London, where Chinese President Xi Jinping is being received by the Queen in an official welcome ceremony. Now the carriages are being prepared to take President Xi Jinping and the Queen back to Buckingham Palace. The Queen and Prince Philip will accompany Chinese President Xi Jinping and his wife, Peng Liyuan, in a state carriage procession back to Buckingham Palace. The Guard of Honor will give a royal salute and the color will be lowered as the carriage is ready to depart. The band will play China's national anthem, followed by the British national anthem. After arriving at Buckingham Palace, she will have lunch with the Queen and view items from the royal collection in the palace's picture gallery. Buckingham Palace has served as the official London residence of Britain's sovereigns since 1837. It's the center of the monarchy and the Queen's home. The palace has 775 rooms and is furnished and decorated with priceless works of art that form part of the royal collection, one of the major art collections in the world today. Of course, as we said earlier, the Queen will show President Xi Jinping some items from that collection, mostly Chinese-related items that may include books, works, artifacts. The Chinese national anthem is being played as the carriage procession starts. carriage procession follows a ceremonial welcome at the Royal Pavilion on Horse Guards Parade. It's a carefully choreographed welcome ceremony in honor of Chinese President Xi Jinping. This is the morning part of President Xi Jinping's first day with the Queen. They will have lunch together at the Buckingham Palace and get on to a very busy afternoon. When they do arrive back at the Buckingham Palace, the Queen will host a private lunch for the President in the palace. They will be joined by members of the royal family and the British and Chinese official delegation. And after luncheon, the Queen and the President will exchange gifts privately, a symbol of goodwill between the two countries. After that, the Queen will invite the President to view a special exhibition of Chinese-related items from the royal collection. They often include books, drawings, and works of art. If you're just joining us, we're live in London with a welcome ceremony for visiting Chinese President Xi Jinping. An official welcome ceremony is being held for visiting Chinese President. He has just met with Queen Elizabeth II. They are now on their way back to Buckingham Palace in a carriage procession. Now, for more on the ground there in London, let's go back to our correspondent Richard Bestick. Richard, you are watching this as this unfolds. What's special about this carefully planned, carefully choreographed welcome ceremony for Chinese President Xi Jinping?
Planned carefully and planned to impress. A state visit on this level is a rare event, and it's been interpreted here in London as having a significance of more than just a measure of the current warm relations between China and Britain, currently better than they have been in the long history between the two countries. Now, this is regarded as an entire recalibration of the relationship between Britain and China. I'm just standing aside so you can get a look here at the troopers as they arrive, and pretty soon afterwards will come the President and the Queen and their partners. And it's the level of the welcome here for the Chinese President that's a measure. You can hear now as he nears Buckingham Palace the roar going up from the crowd. The crowd made up of thousands of Chinese nationals. Britain is one of the top destinations, not just for Chinese tourists who want to come over here, but also regarded as the paramount place for Chinese students. So they've all come out. Some of them have travelled from across the country. They've been here since 6 o'clock in the morning. So they've been here for the last 6 hours. And here now is the state carriage. Excited Chinese nationals, perhaps seeing their president for the first time, certainly seeing the Queen for the first time. They're going in to Buckingham Palace. They'll be going in there to relax for a bit, but they have, as you say, a very busy day ahead of them. They will be planning ahead for an important state banquet at which everyone who's anyone
Richard,
in
I
British
apologize.
society
I'm going to have to
will be
leave you there as
attendance.
time is running out. That's our Richard Bestick live for us in London. And you've been watching this special coverage of Chinese President Xi Jinping being received in an official welcome ceremony by Queen Elizabeth II in London. We have more coming up in our later bulletins. This is CCTV News Desk. Thank you for watching. We have more coming up in our later. We're going to stay with this show, and joining me in the studio is Professor Wang Yiwei from Renmin University. You've been watching this as our viewers and we do here. What impresses you most about this welcome ceremony?
I think still the so-called golden era, the UK took the leading role to recognize the rise of China, will be the equal partner. I think that in the 18th century, there's a so-called the China favor in Europe. Europeans want to learn from Chinese civilization. After the Open War, the Chinese want to more learn from the West, from the UK. But now I think it's mutual learning. I think these relations is never be so equal after the traditional Asian Silk Road. So that's, I think, is a symbol of the One Belt One Road to reveal a new era in the 21st century. I think that this is echoed by the British leaders of the new era, or the golden era of the China-UK relations.
Well, we've talked a lot about what both countries have to gain from a better relationship, a warmer relationship. Let's talk more about the opportunities for China here. Potential areas for cooperation include telecommunications, nuclear power, a high-speed rail. Talk to us about some of these areas for China and how China can benefit from an ever-growing, ever-stronger relationship with the UK.
Yes, as I said, this time I think in President Xi's delegation, the loss of the business persons, including Chinese banks, like construction bank, they have office, issue the bonds, and this is very important for China going abroad to help Chinese invest through the London market and then to invest in the world. I think many Chinese study in the UK want to learn from the British style of the governance and history. Now I think it's more than 150,000 students studied in the UK. That is a huge, and of course more and more British students and then study in China. So that means many things. I think it's a model to share to other countries.
Well, the UK, Britain is of course a leading country, a strong economic power in the European Union and in all of Europe, of course. I want to get your opinion on what the relationship between China and EU, what kind of influence can that relationship have on the relationship between China and other EU countries with the European Union as a whole?
Well, this month, I think with the European month, after this visit, I think the German Chancellor Angela Merkel is visiting China. Probably also French President Hollande also visiting China to prepare for the Paris Climate Change Summit. So I think it's very important that the Chinese diplomatic focus more and more focus on cooperations with Europe, not just eyes on the traditional with the United States or Japan. Why? Because I think, as I said, the Chinese economy growth model is changing, and also with the so-called Belt and Road, the Euro-Asian continent is more and more important to connect each other, and also to explore the third-party market. We also need more cooperation with Britain and France and other European countries.
Do you think that other European countries, to some extent, follow Britain when it comes to a relationship with China? Because we've talked about how Britain first responded to the China proposed Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, then other European countries, Western countries followed. Do you think in other areas of cooperation, in other areas of bilateral relationship, European countries also look on Britain's attitude towards China before they act?
Of course, there's the competition. For instance, there are 4 European capitals of the finance want to be the overseas R&D center, like Sweden and even Frankfurt and Paris also want to be the next one after London. I think this is a competition, division of labor. At the same time, of course, we cannot too much highlight of this kind of leading role. Seems the UK want to divorce with the EU, so some other European continental powers maybe either have some other saying about these special relations. And for the United States, I think can learn some lesson from this, because that's the former empire, and then transferred from the Great Britain to the United States, and the hegemony transferred. And so if UK take the leading role to recognize the rights of China, why not the United States? And so pragmatically and historically, globally, views of the rights of China has a very important signal sent to other countries, particularly to the United States.
Professor Wang, thank you very much for your insights. We are covering the President Xi Jinping's state visit to the UK. He and the Queen have just met at an official welcome ceremony. These are live pictures out of the Buckingham Palace. As you can see, a huge turnout of people lining the street in honor of President Xi Jinping. Well, Professor Wang, President Xi Jinping certainly has a busy schedule, not just for today, but for the remainder of his trip here. He will meet with Prime Minister David Cameron. He will go to a football club, and he has,
Manchester.
Of course, he has a lot planned for his trip here. What part of that trip are you most interested in? Do you think would generate the most reaction from probably Chinese viewers at home?
I think this is a royal family. The whole royal family is welcome President Xi and his delegation. That's a special meaning. You know, the Queen is 89 years old, so it's a symbol not only for the UK but also for other Commonwealths. So her any activities I think watched closely by in the English world. So this time I think many activities not only arranged for President Xi but also for Madame Pan Liyuan. It's a very good case to show Chinese soft power, the new image. That's the reason so many Chinese nationals are so excited about this visit. So that's totally, I think, is a good, important case for the people-to-people exchange.
And this state visit is certainly not just political, economic, and also about cultural exchange as well. We do know that China is trying to give a boost to its football sector and build more football schools, something that the UK is very strong in. We'll get back to that point later in our program. Now let's go back to our correspondent Richard Bastek in London. Richard, what's happening on the street there? What can you tell us? We'll get back to Richard later in our program, but let's continue with our discussion about the purpose of this trip, which is political, of course, which is about trade, which is about growing opportunities between China and the UK, all of these factors coming together. But it's also about cultural exchange, about also learning from Britain's experience in sports, in football in particular.
I think now China is they have the more advanced to the European style of football, particularly the UK soccer. And then I think not only for the traditional football, but also I think creative thinking. For instance, this year the visit to Shanghai of the so-called the creative of the week, and then the youth and the youth connections is also very important. That brings the future of our corporations. Besides, I think the leaders also talk about something beyond the bilateral relations. For instance, David Cameron provided a special so-called dinner for President Xi with his Prime Minister house outside of London. We'll talk more about like global governance issue, like the climate change, like the AIIB working mechanism, like the international financial and economic order. I think that's the importance that UK can play more in shaping the new international order.
Professor Wang, thank you very much. Let's go back to our correspondent Richard Bestick, live for us in London. Richard, what can you tell us on the ground there?
Well, there was a great deal of a ripple of excitement ran down the Mall as the President and the Queen in the state carriage moved towards Buckingham Palace. That broke into loud cheers from the thousands of Chinese nationals who've travelled from all over Britain. Many of them are students. Britain is a very popular destination with Chinese students. I was speaking to some of them earlier. They were saying that actually inside China that Britain and the British education system is preferable to that of the United States, although I think the official statistics probably don't go with that. But as you were saying, that is the welcome. That is saying hello. From that launches this so-called golden era of which the British Prime Minister David Cameron and his Finance Minister George Osborne have been talking. And it's all based. That's the red flags, the red carpet out of the way, apart from later on when we'll have a state banquet attended by 3 generations of the royal family and of course the Prime Minister and guest of honour, the President and the First Lady. Then the rest of the week, it's down to business. It's down to signing those deals and showing the tangible trade and financial impact of this recalibrated relationship between Britain and China.
Richard, I want to take you up on the state banquet you mentioned earlier, which is the centerpiece of today's schedule with President Xi. What more can you tell us about the state banquet?
Well, it'll be attended by an array of political celebrities, but also stars of the sporting world and the theatre world. They will reflect the growing cultural exchanges between Britain and China, the sharing of museum artefacts, the putting on of shows for British theatre travelling to China, Chinese theatre and Chinese opera coming to Britain. So they will reflect that at the banquet, where they will have an enjoyable meal. We're told that the President, Xi, has brought his own water supply. He brings his own water supply, and the only thing he didn't like on the menu apparently was fish. Other than that, it should be a very enjoyable time for all. Very formal, very white tie, and attended by just about anyone who's anyone in Britain.
Our Richard Bestick, live for us in London. Richard, thank you very much. We're covering President Xi Jinping's state visit to the UK. He has just met with the Queen, and he has a very busy day ahead of him. The Queen and President Xi Jinping will have a private lunch in the Buckingham Palace. They will also be joined by members of the royal family and the British and Chinese official delegation. We're also joined here in the studio by Professor Wang from Renmin University. He's been watching this welcome ceremony with us, and we've been discussing a lot of the issues on President Xi Jinping's trip, about the focus of his trip, about potential areas for cooperation, about possible deals that could be reached this time around. Professor Wang, let's go back to some of the possible areas for cooperation this time. We've talked about financial cooperation, we've talked about cultural exchange, and we've also talked about how this trip might give a boost to China's football. Among these areas of cooperation, let's delve in a little bit into the financial areas here. This will give a boost to the financial cooperation already in place between China and the UK, of course. We talked about RMB internationalization. We've talked about how China and Britain can both benefit from the AIIB and One Belt, One Road initiative. Just give us a general overview of some of these opportunities laid out this time.
Well, besides this, I think the high technologies is also the key of this visit. You know, UK has privileges in many things like the engines of the aircraft, and also some new materials, which China is more eyes on to this. And then for other countries like the United States, is for national security consideration, they are not cooperated so much with China. So UK, I think, is more open to China in this regard. I think it's very important to improve Chinese technology and particularly renovation. I think besides this, I think there's many other things.
Professor Wang, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we don't have enough time. We're going to have to leave you there. Professor Wang from Birmingham University, thank you very much. This is special coverage of President Xi's state visit to the UK.